It started the way most betrayals do, quietly. My husband Daniel had always been the kind of man people trusted instantly. Polite, steady, the kind who made eye contact when he spoke and remembered small details like how you take your coffee or what song you hummed absent-mindedly in the car. I fell in love with that attention, with the way he made me feel like I was the only person in a crowded room. We'd been married for 7 years, and in all that time, I thought we were solid. Not perfect, but real. We laughed, we fought, we made up. We shared the kind of silence that felt comfortable, not cold. Then the business trip started. At first, they made sense. He was ambitious, and I wanted to believe he was building a better future for us. He'd kiss me on the forehead, luggage in hand, saying, "Just 3 days, babe, I'll call when I land." And he always did, every time. His voice steady, reassuring, but it was what he didn't say that began to echo louder. Because one night when he called from New York, I could hear waves in the background, the gentle roll of the ocean. I remember freezing, holding my breath. "Are you near the water?" I asked lightly. He chuckled, said it was just the wind through the hotel vent, and I almost believed him. Almost. The first crack in the glass. My sister Lily had always been different from me. Where I was quiet, she was radiant, the kind of woman people turned toward when she entered a room. We'd been close once, but as we got older, I became the shadow to her spotlight. Even my parents compared us, though they never said it outright. "Lily just has a natural charm," they'd say, smiling at her while I cleared the dishes. Still, she was my sister. I loved her. I trusted her. She'd ask about Daniel sometimes, teasing me about how I'd scored the last good man alive. She laughed when she said it, but her eyes lingered a second too long. I brushed it off because that's what you do with family. You give them the benefit of the doubt, even when something in your gut whispers not to. Then came the weekend that changed everything. Daniel was supposed to be in Chicago. Lily had texted me out of the blue saying she was feeling sick and didn't want to be alone. "Can you come by?" she'd written. I almost didn't go. My schedule was full and she lived across town. But something in her tone felt off. I drove anyway. When I pulled into her driveway, her car was gone. I thought maybe she'd gone to the pharmacy, but then I saw it, parked right beside the curb, half hidden under a streetlight. Daniel's car. For a moment, my brain refused to believe it. Maybe he'd stop by to check on her for me. Maybe it was a coincidence. Logic stretched itself thin, desperate to make the scene make sense. I walked to the door, knocked, no answer. The porch light flickered once, like the universe itself hesitated. Then through the half-drawn blinds, I saw movement. Her silhouette first, bare shoulders, long hair falling down her back. Then his hand, resting against her waist like it had once rested on mine. The sound that escaped me wasn't a scream. It was smaller than that. A quiet exhale of something breaking. I didn't confront them. Not that night. I turned, got in my car, and drove until the city disappeared behind me. I parked by the side of an empty road, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My reflection in the windshield looked like someone else. Someone emptied out. When I finally got home, the silence in the house was unbearable. His coffee mug was still on the counter, half full, his jacket draped over the chair. Ordinary things suddenly cruel in their familiarity. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the dark, staring at the door, waiting for the sound of his key in the lock. When it finally came at 2:17 a.m., I didn't move. He walked in, his voice low and casual. "Hey, you're still up?" The smell of her perfume followed him inside, and in that moment I realized this wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. He stood there in the doorway, pretending nothing had changed. The kind of man who could step out of another woman's bed and still ask, "Did you eat dinner?" like he was doing me a favor. I watched him move through the room, every gesture rehearsed. The way he loosened his tie, the soft sigh as he kicked off his shoes. He'd done this 100 times before. When I didn't answer, he finally looked at me. Really looked. "What's wrong?" he asked. His tone smooth, practiced concern. "Nothing," I said. My voice came out too even, too calm. "Just couldn't sleep." He nodded, relieved as if I'd just confirmed that everything was fine. Then he kissed my forehead. I felt his lips on my skin and tried not to flinch. The betrayal burned deeper because it was so quiet, so normal. For the next week, I became an actress in my own home, smiling when he spoke, asking about his meetings, pretending not to notice the late-night texts or the sudden showers right after coming home. It's strange how easily love can disguise itself as denial, how we convince ourselves it's safer not to know the full truth, but denial doesn't last forever. One afternoon while folding laundry, his phone buzzed on the couch. I wasn't planning to look. I really wasn't. But when I saw the name flash across the screen, Lily, something in me cracked open. The message was short. "Can't stop thinking about last night." It felt like falling into cold water. Every memory of the two of them, family dinners, birthdays, inside jokes, flashed through my mind, rearranging themselves into something darker. I scrolled up, my hands shaking. Messages, photos, plans, all there, the proof I never wanted. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat there staring at the phone until the screen dimmed. My heart didn't shatter like I thought it would. It just went quiet. That night, I cooked dinner as usual. He came home, kissed my cheek, talked about his conference call. I nodded, serving him a plate of pasta like it was any other night. He smiled, oblivious. And then he said it. "Lily texted me earlier. She's thinking about redecorating her place. Maybe you should go help her. You've got good taste. My fork paused midair. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't see my husband. I saw a stranger rehearsing lines in a play he thought he'd already won. I excused myself from the table and went into the bathroom. I locked the door, stared at my reflection in the mirror, and whispered, "Why are you protecting him?" The woman in the mirror didn't have an answer. I decided to wait, to watch, to see how far he'd go. Sometimes silence is the most powerful weapon you have. Over the next few days, I collected my evidence: hotel receipts, call logs, photos of his car outside her apartment. It was almost mechanical, like I'd become an observer of my own life, detached and deliberate. Each piece of proof felt like a nail sealing a coffin. When I finally had enough, I printed everything, laid it out on the dining table like an art exhibit of broken trust. Then I called Lily. "Hey," she said cheerfully, her voice light, almost sweet. "Can you come over?" I asked. "It's important." She hesitated. "Is Daniel there?" That was the moment I knew she already understood. 2 hours later, she arrived. She looked beautiful, of course, effortless, like someone who didn't lose sleep over lies. Her perfume filled the air before she even crossed the threshold. When she saw the table, her smile faltered. I didn't speak. I just watched her face shift. Confusion, realization, then fear. She looked at me like I was a ticking bomb. Maybe I was. Finally, she said, "It's not what you think." I let out a quiet laugh. "Then tell me what it is, Lily. Make it sound better." She opened her mouth but said nothing. The silence between us was louder than any confession. Then, without thinking, I said the one thing I'd been holding in for years. "You always wanted what I had, even when we were kids." Her eyes glistened, maybe with guilt, maybe not. "He came to me," she whispered. "He said you were distant, that he felt alone." My voice trembled. "And that was enough?" She looked down, her mascara threatening to run. "That was the last time I saw my sister as family. But what came next, I wasn't ready for." 2 days later, Daniel came home early from work. His usual charm was gone, his voice tight, eyes darting toward the empty spaces where my things used to be. I'd already packed some essentials quietly, efficiently. My plan wasn't revenge, it was freedom. He dropped his keys on the counter, the sound sharp in the silence. "Lily told me you know." I didn't answer. He took a step closer. "It was a mistake," he said, almost pleading. "You have to believe me." I met his eyes for the first time in days. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, not sleeping with my sister for months." He flinched, but his next words came fast, defensive. "You've been distant for a long time. I didn't plan this." The way he said it, "I didn't plan this," as if betrayal just happened, like weather, like he was a victim of his own choices. I walked past him toward the window, needing space from the suffocating air. Outside, the city kept moving, indifferent to the ruins inside our home. "You had a choice," I said quietly, "and you made it." He rubbed his face, pacing. "So what now? You're just going to leave?" I almost laughed. The irony of him asking that when he'd already left me long before I knew it. "I don't owe you an ending," I said. "You wrote it yourself." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his voice softened. "I still love you." That was the cruelest part. Because a piece of me still wanted to believe him, still wanted to imagine there was something worth saving beneath the ashes. But love built on lies isn't love, it's habit. I turned away because if I looked at him any longer, I might have stayed. That night, I drove to the small cottage my grandmother used to own, an hour outside the city near the coast. It smelled like old wood and salt, and the silence there wasn't heavy, it was healing. For the first time in weeks, I slept. The next morning, the sun came through the window, warm on my face. The sea was calm, almost forgiving. I made myself coffee and opened my phone, missed calls, messages, apologies. From both of them, none of which I read. My mother called too. I ignored it at first, but she kept ringing until I finally answered. "Where are you?" she asked. "Lily's been crying for days." I let out a quiet laugh, bitter around the edges. "She should be." "Sweetheart," my mother said carefully, "you can't throw away family over a man." Her words hung there, absurd and cruel. "No, Mom," I whispered. "I'm walking away from both for my own sanity." There was silence on the line, the kind that reveals more than words ever could. I realized then that my parents would never understand. Maybe they never really saw me at all. Lily was their favorite story. I was just a footnote. When I hung up, I cried. Not for Daniel, not even for Lily, but for the years I spent believing I had to earn love. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, the noise inside me began to quiet. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since before the marriage. The colors bled across the canvas, blue, white, gold, like a language I'd forgotten how to speak. Healing isn't cinematic. It's not sudden or dramatic. It's quiet mornings. It's choosing not to answer messages. It's realizing you don't need closure from people who shattered you. One evening as I walked along the shore, I saw a familiar car parked by the cliffs. My heart stumbled before my mind caught up. Daniel. He was leaning against the hood, waiting. The wind tugged at his shirt, his expression somewhere between guilt and desperation. "I had to see you," he said when I approached. "Just one last time." I didn't respond. I let the silence speak for me. He looked at me, eyes searching for the woman who used to love him. "I made a mistake," he said again, voice breaking. "I miss us." I took a slow breath. "There is no us anymore, Daniel. You chose her. And in doing that, you lost me." His eyes glistened. "I ended it with her." I almost smiled. You ended it too late. He stepped closer, but I didn't move. The ocean behind me roared like applause for a decision I'd already made. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. I felt done. I turned, started walking away. He called my name once, but I didn't look back. And yet, as I reached the edge of the dunes, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down and froze. It wasn't Daniel this time. It was Lily. Her message read, "You think you won, but you have no idea what's coming." Her message sat there on my screen, glowing in the dark like a warning. For a moment, I just stared at it, the words blurring slightly as my pulse quickened. "You think you won? But you have no idea what's coming." It didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like threat. I locked the phone and set it down on the table beside me, listening to the waves outside. The sound used to calm me. Tonight, it only made the silence heavier. I didn't reply. What could I even say? I'd already stepped away from both of them. Their chaos didn't belong to me anymore. Still, a small trembling part of me wondered, what did she mean? The next morning, I got my answer. I stopped by a small grocery store in town. As I stood in line, I noticed people glancing at me, whispering. One woman's eyes softened when they met mine, like she pitied me. Another turned her gaze away, embarrassed. It was only when I got back to my car that I saw it. My phone lighting up with notifications. A post on social media from Lily. A photo of Daniel and me from years ago, our wedding day. Her caption beneath it, "Sometimes love belongs to the wrong person first." And hundreds of comments. Some cruel, some curious, all public. She turned our private pain into a spectacle. My hands shook, not from sadness, but disbelief. I hadn't expected her to go that low. I thought betrayal had an endpoint, a place where shame or conscience would stop it from spreading further. But some people, when caught, just burn everything down. For a moment, I wanted to fight back, to post the truth, to expose her. But then I stopped myself. I remembered how exhausted I'd been all those years trying to prove I was good enough, trying to defend my version of the story. No more. I deleted my accounts that day, every single one. The silence that followed was deafening at first, but then freeing. A week later, I found work at a small local gallery. The owner, an older woman named June, didn't ask questions about my past. She just looked at my paintings and said, "You've been through something. I can feel it in the colors." I smiled for the first time in months. Yeah, I said softly, something like that. Working there grounded me. Each day, I met people who didn't know my history. People who saw me as I was now, not as the broken pieces of who I'd been. And slowly, I began to rebuild. Not the life I'd lost, but one that actually felt like mine. One evening, just before closing, a man came in. Quiet, polite, with paint on his hands. He was a local artist, there to drop off a new piece for display. We talked for a while about art, about the ocean, about how pain can either destroy you or shape you into something better. Before leaving, he said something I never forgot. "People think healing means forgetting," he told me. "But it's really about remembering without breaking." That night, I walked along the beach again. The air was cool, the waves brushing against my ankles. I looked back toward the shore, toward the cottage, the faint light in the window, and realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Daniel and Lily could live with what they'd done. I didn't have to carry it anymore. As the tide came in, I whispered to the wind almost like a prayer. "You can keep your lies, I'm done living in them." For the first time, the ocean didn't feel like a mirror of my pain. It felt like release. I didn't respond to Lily's message. I didn't need to. Some stories don't end with confrontation or revenge. Some end quietly with a woman finally choosing herself. Because sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you can do.